So, sorry. I'm also putting them up on the screen as well, but they have also been posted and distributed out to the KMAC members. So do I hear any comments or discussion regarding the meeting notes from the KMAC members at this time?
It looks good to me, Patrick.
I agree.
I'd make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for
Okay.
January 12th, 2022.
Okay, so, okay, so thank you. I have a motion for Chris to approve the meeting notes from January 12th, 2022. I have a second from Melissa. So do I have any discussion on the meeting notes? If not, I will make a vote. I'm going to ask for a vote for those in favors of the KMAC. Say aye.
Aye.
And
Can you confirm those, Patrick? Was it all 5?
let's see.
Because Melissa's now here. Got it.
Yes, Melissa.
Patrick,
Yes.
Lloyd,
Yes.
Larry.
Lloyd, Larry, Melissa, and
Gotcha.
myself and myself. Yes.
Perfect.
So again, all those in favor say aye.
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 Oppose. That said, the meeting notes are approved. Patrick, Lloyd, Barry, Melissa, and Chris. And there's no nays. And Adam is absent. So with that, I am going to, we're going to go to our next item, and this is where we're going to talk about this up again. We're going to talk about the 2 projects that we see, 85 Ardmore and 217 Arlington. So with that, I don't know how many of you have been to a KMAC meeting before, but I'm going to just put this up on the screen in terms of the meeting process. Now, this is normally the process as we would be at in the community centers that we'd be before. There's a slight change on this, and I'll talk about that. So our process is that we will have the applicant present the project. The second is that KMAC will ask some brief questions to the applicant. Then I will open the meeting to the public to speak. Then the speakers will be asked to identify themselves and address an address of their residence. So this is where it's a little different. We used to have a speaker card. And so for note taking, it would be best. And also for all of us in terms of when I call on you to speak, if you would, when we get to the project that you're going to want to speak about, if you can look at the chat and put a chat in and send it to everyone and put your name and your address on there. And that will help us kind of identify you as we go along. Hopefully we won't miss you as we see it on the chat, but that will give us enough time to have to write this down as we go along. So if we could do that, as we identify yourself, the next item is the speakers may ask questions or make comments. And then at that, I will ask if there's any comments that the applicant wants to respond to at that time. I'll allow that to happen after all the public speaking has happened. I would, as I think on possibly the second project that we're going to look at 217 Arlington, I want to make sure that we have enough time for everybody to speak. So I'm going to limit that to 3 minutes a piece. And I'm going to just say when you're done with the 3 minutes, there won't be another time to re-comment on your comment in previous. So I just want to make sure that we all can be able to speak in time, and we'll make the meeting process a lot timelier and easier. So at that point in time, I will close the public comment and we can discuss it amongst ourselves. We hope at that point in time, we'll make a recommendation, and all those as you would know, is that we only make recommendations on projects. We do not make recommendations, we do not approve or deny projects. The county, the zoning administrator will make that either approval or denial at that time. So that is the meeting process of the project. The second thing I do want to mention if you haven't been to a Kensington meeting, a Kensington MAC meeting, Kensington has a unique planning ordinance specific for Kensington, and that these policies are items that we will review in terms of the project. So I'll read those right now. They all are also on the screen. We will consider in terms of our discussion and our recommendation, it will be based on these 5 items. So the first item is to allow for the review of a new residential development that provides reasonable protection for existing residents in the Kensington community with regards to views, design compatibility, including building bulk, size, and height, adequate parking, privacy, and access to sunlight. The second is the preservation of views of the scenic natural features, for example, the bays and mountains, and the developed environments, for example, the bridges and city skylines, should be incorporated into our review. The third is the review of the proposed residential development for design compatibilities with nearby developments, for example, building mass, height, mechanical activities, and provisions for adequate parking. The fourth is the new residential development will be reviewed against realistic impacts of privacy and sunlight on surrounding neighbors. And the fifth, which is probably most important for the second item, the second agenda item, project agenda item, is that consideration will given to review of non-residential development in the Kensington community with the policies that are listed above. So these items that are listed above are both for the residential project that we will be looking at 85 Ardmore, as well as the project we will be looking at 217 Arlington. So with that, there's one other thing I need to mention, because both of these projects have variances. They're variance projects, and there are 3 variance findings that we will need to see in terms of how we make our recommendation or how we will look upon these projects. The first one is that any variance authorized shall not constitute a grant of special privilege inconsistent with the limitations on other properties in the vicinity and the respective land use district in which the subject property is located. The second is the required finding is that because of special circumstances applicable to the subject property because of its size, shape, topography, location, or surroundings, the strict application of the respective zoning regulation is found to deprive the subject property of rights enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity and within the identical land use district. And the third is that any variance authorized shall substantially meet the intent and purpose of the respective land use district in which the subject property is located. So again, all 3 findings, we must find agreement on all 3 variance findings. We can't just have it on 1 or 2, it has to be all 3. So with all that, I am going to, again, put up the meeting agenda. And I believe that we are going, for the first project that we're going to look at is 85 Ardmore, VR 2101044. The applicant requires approval of a variance to allow for the conversion of the lower level unconditioned space into conditioned space to create as an as-built 3rd story where 2.5 stories is maximum, all on a lot with the substandard average width. The project also includes the Kensington design review for a new covered sun porch on the lower level, a new raised deck on the upper level, new windows and doors, as-built unconditioned space to living space. Approximate resulting gross floor area GFA to 2,626 square feet is under the GFA threshold of 3,100 square feet for the subject property. So with that, I believe that Prachi, I think I saw you.
Yes, hi.
And so I guess I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you want me, if you're going to share your application and
Yeah,
do that?
Can
Okay.
you spell your name for me too? Sorry, I'm taking notes in the background.
no worries. My name is Prachi, Prachi. That's my first name, Prachi Nandoskar. I'm the resident of 85
Your
Ardmore
last name,
Road.
sorry.
Nandoskar, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, Doskar.
Got it. Thank you.
And hi, everyone. I'm the resident of 85 Ardmore Road since December of 2018. And nice to see the community first time on this meeting. I also have with me Mr. Joseph Landry. He's the architect from Landry Design who helped us with our drawings and, the drawings which we submitted for the application. I just want to share my screen to show mainly drawing of the level which we are talking about as a variance. What you're looking at is actually the lower level, which was just mentioned, for which we are applying for the variance. And this is actually when we moved into this house, we call it the basement. So it started as a basement remodel project. We didn't know that when we applied for the basement remodel, county told us that if you can do the basement as a livable space, because you already have 1.5 story house, it will be 3-story house after we do that. So what you're looking at is our design of the remodel basement. And here the second thing which variance was talking about, I don't think that's the variance we are talking about, and I'm going to let Joe also explain technically what was why we required the variance. I also want to mention about the porch though. So what you are seeing here in the striped brown spot is the lower deck, which actually opens to it on our backyard. So it is in our backyard. The upper deck is the one which will be new, and that's the deck what we envision to be just the entry to the lower deck from our main level. So it's not something which we want to have as a sitting area or extension of our house. So that's one thing which I wanted to put it as an application. And I'm going to hand it over to Joe if you have any comments or any explanation you want to provide about the variance application.
Joe, could you give me the spelling of your last name?
Yes, thank you. My spelling of my last name is Landry.
Thank you.
Thank you. So good to talk to everybody tonight about this project at 85 Ardmore. Yes, as Prachi said, when I was brought onto the project by Ms. Nandaskar, it was to remodel an existing unconditioned lower basement space. So the planning of this bedroom and bathroom downstairs was to walk out to the backyard, and the home that exists right now from the street level is a very nice low profile 1-story bungalow home with a hip roof. So from actually the street level, you can see it's a very small low profile 1-story home. So the site slopes off towards the back. So taking advantage of an unfinished lower level basement to add 600 square feet of a master bedroom and bathroom seemed a very logical way to improve this already existing footprint of this home. We are not expanding any of the footprint of the home. The home foundation is staying the exact same outline as it always was. Also, the back step out unfinished basement, we're not adding any extra space onto the backyard. It was just simply taking an unfinished 600 square feet of lower level and finishing it, conditioning it to be livable. We submitted to city planning and it was all going very well. It's going through planning. And because of a We thought of the attic as a half story, which would make it a 2.5-story house. Well, there is a dormer, as you can see in one of the pictures, a small 3-foot dormer on the back of the house, because there is, in the half story, on the back of the house, there is a small office in the upper attic level. That, even though there's only 4-foot knee walls in the upper attic level, this one dormer by the city planning reviewer considered that to make it a 3-story house rather than a 2.5-story house. Well, that is the only part of the house that basically, according to what I've read in the guidelines, pushes it to a 3-story home. So we're not changing any of the profile, anything that one can see from the front road. We're not changing anything inside or of the envelope itself. We're simply asking for a bedroom to walk out the backyard. And that is why we're here tonight.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you. Prachi, do you want to add anything before I
No.
take over? Okay,
No, that's all. That's all. That's the project, and that's the application we have submitted for.
all right, thank you. All right, so at this point in time, I'm going to ask the KMAC members if they have any brief questions to ask the applicant, either Joe or Prachi. So maybe I'll just start with Lloyd.
Right, sorry, trying to unmute. I don't have any questions. Thank you, Patrick.
Okay, Larry, do you have any questions?
It seems straightforward to me, but have you had any input from neighbors? Is there anyone who's responded to this from either side of the house?
Yeah, I did talk to our immediate neighbors, and they didn't find it. They didn't have any concerns
Thank you.
about it. Yeah.
All right, Melissa?
My only question, my only question is, are there any other views of that dormer, like straight on to the back or from the other side, or how it relates to the bottom part of the house? By any chance?
You can see it from the front. It's that point in the middle of the roof there.
Yes, that's
That-
actually
No.
true.
No.
No, 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 no.
it's
Look
On the
at the
second
door.
picture.
So
Look at the back.
I think there's a drawing in there that's an elevation that you might, it's not a photo, but it's a drawing of the elevation.
Okay, that'll
Yeah,
work.
let me look at the better drawing of the back.
There you go.
Keep going.
Right, keep going. Keep going.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah,
There it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah,
And to confirm, it's just the interior space below that at the lower level. Otherwise, it is
Here.
exactly the same as
Yeah.
exists.
Right.
yeah. The work will be here at this level. This
Mhm.
level will be unaffected. This is our main level. This is a basement, and this is an attic actually.
But it's going to exist as
Yeah.
seen on the exterior. Okay.
Right.
You should be able to go to the new rear elevation A-3.8. Go, scroll up. Thank you, Prachi.
3.8. Yeah,
Yep. One.
here.
And
Okay.
yeah, so this is
Oh,
our
this is a new
proposed.
one. Mhm.
The attic stays the same, so do the windows on the, what would be the main level. And the only thing on the lower level is that new French door.
But the facade is exactly as is, separate. The door is being redesigned, but the facade is not being pulled out.
No,
Right.
No, not at all. It's not being pulled out. It's the same footprint, same exact line of foundation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, do you have any questions?
No, looks pretty straightforward.
And I don't actually have any questions either. So at this time, I'm going to open it up to the public, and I see that there's John Sarin from 87 Ardmore. So if you would want
John, John or Jon? Sorry, I'm not looking. at the screen.
Jon,
Stearns.
Sarlin.
Sarlin.
Lin.
I was close. Got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi. So I understand I have 3 minutes, so I'll keep it short, but hi, Prachi, I'm your
Hi.
next door neighbor. Good luck with the
Yeah.
project.
Hi.
I was just more concerned because I'm the next door neighbor and I work from home because it's, this COVID pandemic. I do
Mhm.
all my work basically between 9 and or about 10 and 5 p.m., 10 a.m. And I'm just concerned with noise because when I had another neighbor who was doing a lot of projects on his house, unfortunately I had to call the police. It was like a Sunday. It was like middle of the day and a lot of loud noise. And the police said, well, there's nothing you could do. There's no noise ordinance in Kensington. People can come any day for the whole day for 24 hours if they want, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. So I thought, well, if my son and I were sleeping and someone's working on the house at, Sunday at 4 a.m., my only question really is nothing about the house and the project per se, but what is the expected length or duration of the project so that I can anticipate how long I expect the noise that could impact my ability to do business from my home? What's the expected length and duration in months of the project? And what are the hours under the ordinance that people are entitled to work, the days and the hours people are allowed to do construction work?
So I have the same concerns because we are also working from home, and then having a project in our house itself is a big, it's a big adjustment for us. We have 2 little kids, so it's all we need to plan way ahead of time. I'll give you a lot of notice before we start, and we also would not like to have a work done on the weekends. Of course, we make sure that it's weekend work. The work is not done on the weekends, but the project is going to be longer as we are getting the quotes from the construction workers. We can't do anything unless we get approval from the county. So we can't know for now, but it can be from 4 to 6 months. That's what I'm hearing from the contractors. Just because of the COVID, the situation is a little bit tricky with the supplies and less workers. The projects are taking longer than expected. That's what I'm hearing.
Good to know. And as for the county, maybe could answer the questions. What, if anything, could be done about getting a noise ordinance in Kensington to prevent people from doing home construction work next door at 4 a.m., 7 a.m., 9 a.m. on a Sunday? Is there a noise ordinance? And if not, what redress does a citizen have if there's excess noise on a weekend day at the wrong hours? What can I do?
So let's do this. John, I can answer that question sort of, but let's see if there's any other comments from the public. Okay, if there isn't, and normally I would give Prachi that time to respond to your comment, so and she did. So I'm gonna just say what, and I will need to check up on this, but I'm not quite sure who you talked to in terms of noise, construction noise, but there are limits in terms of construction timeframes, in terms of working hours on the weekdays and hours on the weekends. And so I need to see if it's either 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning on the weekdays, and it needs to close by, I think, 6 p.m. But I will find that. That's a code. It's a building inspection code that goes through in terms of, it'll be something that Prachi, when you submit for your permit and you pick up your permit, that will be picked up by your contractor, most likely. It will state what your hours of construction can be, of noise hours. So it's most about noise. I don't know if Supervisor Joya is on the call, but there is a noise. There's not necessarily a noise ordinance per se, but there is a construction activity ordinance that's sort of related to noise. And it helps for people, working and living, and I'm going to say being able to relax in their home during outside of the business hours on the weekdays. So.
Well, thank you, Prachi. And it reassures me knowing that you guys are going to be living in the house too, and that you have 2 kids. And so you probably have the same concerns I do. So we'll be very explicit. And I trust I won't have to knock on anyone's door.
No. And then I mean, of course, I think I'll definitely keep you and Kara, who's on 83. We are immediate neighbors. So way ahead of time, about the project and when we are starting and all those details. I'm happy to share that ahead of time with you so that you can be prepared too along with us for this.
Okay,
And that
appreciate
this
it.
is
Thank you.
definitely mostly we are more worried about the foundation than making the basement as a livable space. And because of last rain, we were really alarmed and definitely want to make this a priority to get this done this summer, if possible.
Okay, thank you. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you. I don't see any other people that would like to speak, so I'm going to close the meeting for this particular project and talk amongst ourselves in terms of the KMAC. So I'll just go with Chris. Do you have any comments?
I'd say it's in line with other things. I believe it meets the three conditions. One, it's an existing condition. It's already there. So they're not creating a new condition. They're staying within the envelope. But I don't think it is a special privilege because there are a number of houses on the Arlington that have the exact same condition where they've got, the basement space and or converted basement space. The special circumstances are it's pre-existing. It's already there. And I think it meets the land use intent of the land use district. So I think it looks really good.
Thank you. Melissa?
I agree with Chris.
Okay, great. Larry?
I agree completely.
All right. And Lloyd?
Same, I really don't have anything extra to contribute.
Okay, great. I'll just add my comments. I actually think I congratulate the architect and the applicant in terms of putting this application together. I think it is experience, or what also it does is it's also the spirit of, most importantly, of what this ordinance was kind of looked at, how it was created. You're adding square footage to your resident, but you're not necessarily going up or changing the envelope, which you're going down, and that you're reusing that space that you already have. So even though it's not over the square footage threshold, it's really one of those things that this is a wonderful project that is really to the spirit of the Kensington ordinance. So I really applaud you both for putting this together. So with that, I'm going to just ask for if there's a motion.
Patrick, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of 85 Ardmore VR 21-01044.
Okay.
I'll second.
And so I have a motion from Chris, a second from Melissa. Do I have any added comments? I do want to make sure that Chris, I know that recommend approval, but I know that you said it in your comments, but we should put in the motion that the 3 variants requirement
Meets the intent. Okay, meets the
Yeah.
as it meets the 3 variance requirements. Got it.
So if you want to re-motion,
Yep, give me 1 second. Typing as I go. All right, so make a motion to recommend approval of 85 Ardmore VR 21-01044 as it meets the 3 variance requirements.
do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Chris, second from Melissa. Do you have any discussions based on the motion? If not, I'm going to ask to vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Raise your hand or say aye. I have Larry, Chris, Melissa, Lloyd, Patrick, all in recommending the project. No, I'm going to say there's no nays because there's no other people here. So KMAC is recommending the project. So Prachi, this information will be sent to the county. I don't know exactly who your planner is, but probably the best thing is ask the planner when you can actually get on the zoning administrator's calendar.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much.
Yep.
So let's do this. We're going to go to the, if you can,
Thank you.
thank you. We're going to go to the next project. Let's see, we can go to the next project, and which is 217 Arlington, VR 21-01040, Kensington Public Safety Building. It's the GRES approval of the variance and the Kensington Design Review application to allow a 13-foot front yard setback where 20 feet is the minimum, and 3-foot 5-inch side yard where 5 feet is the minimum, for a 345 square foot second story addition. So with that, I believe that Bill, excuse me, Bill is on the line, and I'm going to ask Bill if you would, Hanson, if you would want to share the screen on your project, on the project.
Absolutely. Thank you. Bill Hansel, Hansell, General Manager for the Kensington Fire Protection District. And I'd be happy to share this screen and then walk through the plans. I wanted to introduce the president of our board, President Larry Nagel. I think President Nagel wants to make a few comments maybe prior to my walking through the project.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, thank you very much, Bill, for the introduction. My name is Larry Nagel, N as in Nancy, A-G-E-L, and I am the president of the Kensington Fire Protection District. And I just wanted to give a brief overview of this project. The total project is a seismic upgrade to the public safety building located at 217 Arlington, because and this seismic upgrade is necessitated by the fact that a seismic report that we got in 2018 told us that the building would not survive a 6.0 earthquake, and that it could possibly result in loss of life for the firefighters who would be at the firehouse if they were at the firehouse at that time. So this became a very important project for us for the health and safety of the firefighters that serve us. The variance, basically what we're doing is we're trading outdoor patio space, 350 square feet of outdoor patio space, which at this point has become an unnecessary luxury, for 345 square feet of indoor living space for firefighters, which is an absolute necessity. The footprint of the building has not changed. Nothing has changed other than the fact that the patio is enclosed and it becomes part of the firefighters' living quarters. And probably the biggest constraint that we've been fighting now for some time is the fact that every square foot in that building is precious. Because of the seismic upgrade and the seismic conditions, we're not allowed to increase the footprint of the building. So we're not allowed to make the building any wider or any longer. And we're not allowed to put on another story. So we're not allowed to change anything in terms of the footprint. And in addition to that, we're being forced to give up some space in terms of things like the county is requiring an elevator, which requires a certain number of square feet, and Bill will talk to that. And also, we just have to face the fact that the building was built in 1970, and the requirements for a firehouse in 2022 are drastically different. The space requirements are much larger You're never going to find any fire department in the country that when they build a new firehouse, they build one that's smaller than the one that they have, just because of the additional space that's required. A few examples of things that are requiring more space. In 2001, well, in 1997, Chief Cutright issued a memorandum explaining why we needed more space. So this is hardly a new problem. 1997 was a while ago. Since then, in 2001, we were the first fire district in Contra Costa County to put paramedics on our fire engines. That required more space for all of the storage of the medical equipment that you have to have as part of a paramedic unit. Finally, there's been numerous mandates for the safety of firefighters in terms of they now need a decontamination unit to clean their turnout gear after a working fire, to get rid of the contaminants that have been shown to cause cancer. This is a public health issue for the firefighters. And there's other things that have just caused us to lose space. And so every square foot we can get, we need to get, and we can get 345 square feet by enclosing the patio. So I'll let Bill walk through the details, but basically this isn't changing the footprint of the building. It's not changing anything about the building other than the fact that the patio is now enclosed. And we need that space. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll let Bill take it from here.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen here. You can see the building, I assume. So as President Nagel mentioned, the station was built in 1970, but the actual acquisition of these properties, which were part of residential, they were residential lots. What goes back to letters sent in 1947 asking that that these two properties, actually two lots, be allowed by the county to house the fire station, which used to be a little ways down Arlington. The permitting approvals, by the time that things were worked out, it took another 20 years. So it was in 67 or 68 when the actual zoning authority was granted. But obviously putting the fire station on residential lots sort of conflicted with some of the typical zoning that was required. So just as a reference, of course, the area that is triggering the variance request is this up here. And I'll just briefly walk through the plans. I will, let me zoom in here for you. So this is the existing site plan condition. And as President Nagel had mentioned, back in '97, the chief at the time did a report that basically identified the lack of space that was needed for the firefighters, also concerns about seismic safety, also concerns about accessibility, because at the time the ADA federal regulation was about 6 years old or so, and obviously the building wasn't compliant then. The building originally was built by the fire district for the fire department. There was, I have done some public records requests that went back, and I looked at all the meeting minutes from the time, and I actually even looked at the planning commission reviews, of the applications, and they were trying at the time to maximize as much of the spaces as they could get for for the fire department. What you're seeing here to the bottom of the screen is Arlington. The property line is indicated by the bold line here. The setback that is typical for houses and therefore still on these properties is this smaller dashed line. The existing building built in '70 had the the furthest portion over here on the southwestern side extends out. And then this line across here is the engine bays. So there is an overhang where the deck extends out. I'm showing you this too because one of our constraints, which directly addresses the physical hardship problem, is that a number of years ago, it was identified that along this back property line on the east side, there was a potential fault identified. And that triggered looking into the Alquist-Priolo Act, which limits the construction of facilities near identified faults. So in talking with the county about this and with talking with the state geologist who does the mapping, we did confirm that if we were to try to extend back this building at all, it would basically unravel the Alquist-Priolo Act and essentially not allow us to do any work. So therefore, we can't do any kind of extension in the back. Obviously, the sides are already constrained. The dimensions that you're seeing on the variance request, as I said, are just the existing side northern wall of the building and the existing front setback of the existing deck. Go to the next page here. This area, this is a diagram that shows you the area of the deck to be enclosed, shaded in dark gray. One of the things, the natures of this project is that when you do the amount of structural necessity to bring this not only to seismic compliance, but also to an essential services facility compliance, which is much greater than a typical house or office building, you end up triggering all the other code requirements for a contemporary, new structure. So the reality is that there had been 5 different seismic evaluations since the 1990s. We had the one that President Nagel mentioned in 2018, but we just had another one as part of the actual structural design. And it's basically verified that this building will fall or significantly fail at a time when the community really needs it most during a significant event like that, like a seismic event. So what is necessary to bring it up to essential services facility is essentially a real gutting of the inside of the building and substantial changes to to both the floor slab as well as the second floor framing, as well as the roof framing, as well as a lot of interior new seismic walls. So what that does in reality means you have to take the building apart. And at that point, you've triggered the need to comply with federal guidelines for ADA, which of course the county follows naturally as part of the state building code. And so you have elevator brings with it a machine room, you have increased restrooms, and then we have things that are not related to building code upgrades that take away space, but just related to fire services, which President Nagel mentioned some of. As you all know, we're getting more and more year-round red flag days. And whenever we have a red flag day, the fire staffing has to increase. So on a normal days, you have 3 crew on an engine. On red flag days, you have 4. Additionally, we have now requirements and standards in the fire service for accommodating both sexes, which obviously means we have to have greater facilities and greater space needs. We also have greater reporting that the firefighters do than they used to do. So right now they have a desk in their bedrooms, which just doesn't fly anymore. There's actually an office. So this space that is being proposed to be used for the enclosure is actually to contain a captain's office and then offices for an engineer and firefighter. So here's the existing plan on the first floor with the engine bays, the offices. A lot of stuff already is kind of crammed into the corners of the engine bays. And the proposed, just for reference, the proposed first floor shows you where we're losing this space for the elevator, as well as the EMR is the elevator machine room. we have miscellaneous accessibility designs, which actually requirements for door swings and water fountains, et cetera, that end up eating bits of space away more and more. But essentially, the first floor remains the engines on the northern side and offices, public space on the lower southern side. The second floor existing has dorm rooms here for the firefighters in the southwest corner, and these offices currently are used by the police up here in the north southeast corner. Here is the deck, and there's the day room, which is essentially the living room for the firefighters, dining room and kitchen. This electrical room is actually used as their gym, which is another requirement that we have to provide firefighters these days, both for reasons of their own health, but also it involves union contracts and requirements that no longer flies to have an electrical room be a gym. And then there's some other utility laundry spaces up here, again, which are none of these things are compliant accessibility wise. And I will say that in terms of accessibility, yes, it is a fire station. We have able-bodied firefighters, but it doesn't preclude various people coming in, building inspectors, state people, federal people, county people, elected officials, or other public members that need to have access. And so it's not really a choice of the district to be able to forgo the accessibility requirements. So here is the second floor plan with the proposed offices taking up the deck space and enclosing a little bit more of the day room space here in the lower part of the screen. You can see the dorms they're actually expanded, and the exercise space, just for reference, now has moved over here. So now all the utility parts of the building are able to be contained in the north eastern corner. So the roof here shows the roof plan shows the cutback for the deck currently, and there's the enclosure, and it's basically just copying that extension around, with a flat deck. So from the outside of the building, obviously that's enclosed, but really the project mostly is looking the same because the windows are getting changed, but that's all just part of accommodating the changes to the floor plan. And the side elevation that's relevant here on the north, here is the existing down below, showing that deck wall that goes up to about 36 inches, and then that would just get filled in with a couple of windows for those offices. I will say that, I wrote a comprehensive letter to Mr. Everett, our planner, regarding the responses, which I hope you might have seen. But this project, in addition to going back to 1997 in terms of these needs, really the intensity of this particular where we are at the end of this stage of proposals started in 2015, and where the district looked at other options to try to see if there was any other place we could build a station. For various reasons, none of those were able to be proceeded upon. We didn't have the option to not do anything, obviously, because of the safety of the firefighters and to the community. In end of 2020, basically there were meetings between the fire management and the police management to try to work through what they needed, what we needed to do our operations jointly. And then since December of 2020, there have been 14 public meetings on this project alone. It's basically reported at every single Kensington Fire Protection District board meeting. We have had this decision to move forward with what appeared to be the best way to proceed to give the community the fire services that we need to provide. And we have been maintaining all of the documents on the district's website and really trying to have this be as engaged a process as possible. obviously the physical constraints we can't do much about. The question of granting the variance and giving a special privilege, I think that, you know, the point being that this is the only fire station, and frankly, given the fact that it was built in 70 and we're 50 years on, and we're about almost 25 years past the last time it was these changes were called for. Obviously, the board wants to make the changes that will last, not only the seismic changes, but also those for the staff going forward into the future. This really is the one opportunity to spend the money wisely. So I hope I've answered a lot of the questions. Be happy to walk through any more of that if it's not clear. But really, we appreciate your time and consideration of the project.
Right. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Larry. At this time, I'm going to just open it up to the KMAC members to ask any brief questions of the project before I open it up to the public. So I'll just go with Chris. Do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Larry?
No, I've gone to many of the meetings that he described, and I understand the situation, so thank you.
Okay. Lloyd?
Again, Patrick, thank you. No questions.
Okay. Melissa?
You're muted, Melissa.
Yeah, you're muted. Sorry. You're still muted. There you go.
There you go.
I do have a number of questions, but I'm going to wait until I hear from the public before I ask.
Okay. Great. I do have one question, and I should have asked the planner before this meeting, and it's really in regards to square footage. So I want to make sure in your adding the square footage of, I don't know, 385.
345, sorry.
345. What is the total square footage for the building itself? Because I think it's listed on your application or your drawings, but I just want to make sure that that's what it is. So if you want to post that up on that drawing, I believe I also have that too.
Sure. I'll just show you where it is.
I think it's
So the calculation from the architects was that the existing 5788 is going to 6133, but let's see, where is that extra square footage coming from?
well, maybe 345, but it might be how it was calculated. So it's around 6,133.
It's the existing that what we've basically we're
What was the
the only the only new square footage is in that corner. I'm not sure if they're counting it a different way because of some other.
It may be the way that the county calculates, I'm going to say square footage.
Yeah,
What was the existing, Patrick?
Sort of a
Sorry.
roundy number actually on that. That said, I just want to ask you, the application didn't show the size of the lot itself. Do you happen to have that? I kind of looked it up on the parcel map, but I wasn't actually sure if that's the right one, and I didn't see it on the plans. Do you have that?
That is a good question.
And you can, that was just a question. Like I said, I should have asked the planner on that. And the reason why I'm mentioning that, because part of the question is really, the project is a variance requirement, but what I'm seeing, if I looked it up on the website, the parcel website for the 217 Arlington, and it said that it was 10,620 square feet for the lot size. And I just want to make sure that that is correct.
Yeah, let me see here, because the survey looks like it has some numbers.
Oh,
Total
there you
site
are,
area,
10,400. Okay, right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, and I was looking, I'm sorry, I was looking at this other section here, which is the breakdown of the ground floor 2871 that's staying 2871, and then second floor 2917 to 3262.
okay, so it's 3262. Okay, good enough. That helps. The reason why I wanted to make sure is I believe, and I know your architect isn't on the line right now, but I want to make sure something, and that's why I was just curious. I'm gonna just.
I happen to be a registered architect myself, so
Oh, okay.
there's an
Good enough.
architect in the house.
Good enough. So I'm only saying this because part of, because it didn't really mention it on the application, but this is sort of, as I'd mentioned before, one of our review portions is looking at square footage as it relates to the project itself. And so I just wanted, and I think you said it's something around that. So
Yeah.
Your number is 3504 or something like that, whatever you said. It is, and I think it's somewhere around here. So what I'm saying is you're within the square footage, at least where we look at square footage as it's for this addition. So it's not like,
Yeah.
this list of items is really regarding the parcel size and the gross floor area. And I think your square footage is within that. So I want to just make that clear because it wasn't part of the application portion. And as mentioned on the last previous one on 85 Ardmore, they were under the FAR, and it looked like you're just right there, very close to the FAR, but you're under it.
Yeah, I can show you something here if you want to let me.
Sure, I'll
back
stop
again.
sharing.
What's interesting, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously it's an anomaly, but as a fire station built on residential lots. But what I found was interesting. This is from the initial board's letter from 1947, which was asking the planning commission to basically sanction the purchasing of these properties, and they had requested at the time in here that the zoning actually be changed because I guess at the time there was a new master zoning plan being considered. So they say the request is made now, although no immediate building is planned, in order to establish assurance that the event of a purchase, there might not be any future complications regarding the erection of such a building. So it's interesting that back in 47 that they were still asking for, the property to be properly kind of zoned. And unfortunately, I guess it never was altered, and it still is trying to comply with, residential kind of standards, but.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that, as mentioned at the start of the meeting, or at least part of when we're looking at projects, we are looking at all those 5 items that are part of it. And even though this is not a residential one, it's a non-residential development, and it still applies. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the public to speak. And I know that if you wish to speak, I would want to have your name on the chat and put your name and your address on there, so then I can call you out and then you can speak. So if there's people who want to speak, please.
Yes, I want to speak.
Okay, Augusto. So can you do this for me? Do you see the chat button? If you would hit that and put your name and your address in there, that would be great. And then you can speak. Because the thing is normally, like I said, we used to have little handouts that people would write in, and then they would put that information. But since we're virtual, we have to go in this format. Otherwise, we will not be able to say who actually spoke at the meeting. It'll be very difficult for us. So anyone who else would like to do that. So Augusto, if you can do that, that would be great. And then I'm seeing people putting in their names. So that's great. And then I will call you based on the chat names. So Augusto, do you want to do that?
Yes, I think I did a direct. Let me,
Okay, yeah, I should still get it.
okay,
No, Patrick.
to Stephen.
Nope, I don't have it.
Okay, let me do it.
Or maybe going to someone else. I don't know.
Yeah,
You got everyone, it helps though.
okay. Oh. Oh, God. I'm still just doing it direct for some reason. Here, let me do this. Copy. How do I?
Make sure it's in the to field, make sure it's.
There you go, everyone. There you go.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you, Augusta. So why don't you start? And I know that there's, I would like to hope to limit it to 3 minutes.
Yes,
And then
I live in 213 Arlington.
Yeah, one thing I want to just make sure. So after the public speaks, then Bill or Larry, you can respond. I don't need for you to respond right after somebody speaks though. Okay, good enough. Sorry, Augusto, go ahead.
Okay, I live right next door to the what's going to be the addition, the deck patio. My home office is in that corner. I think, I'm guessing originally the architects that designed this building softened that corner for the benefit of our house. Maybe Bill could answer that question, but it does provide light to the side of our house, which we have 2 windows, and also my home office, which faces the Arlington. I could see the sky from there, and there's more light coming in. So if that addition would be created, it would block the sky view and light coming in through to the side of our house. So I would hope that the architect would have been sensitive to that. I'm not saying that the whole thing should not be built there, but be designed so that it would be more sensitive to our needs. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Augusto. So I'm going to see in the chat. So I see Ken Finney at 230 Amherst. So if you want to speak, that would be great.
Hi, yeah, thank you. Ken Finney, I live at 230 Amherst, which is behind and just to the south of the property line, the southern property line for the fire station. I had submitted written comments, and I just wanted to make sure that in fact the council had received those. There were 2 photographs and a 1-page write-up of my comments. Was that received?
It was sent out. I'm hoping that it was sent out to the council members. I mean, the council members that are on here. So they have that. So you can just speak to that as a summary if you wish.
Yes, and that was my hope in providing it in writing, is to keep this brief. But the concerns I have to do with noise. And the basic point I would make is this work is an opportunity to think about noise and to address in the design phase potential issues of noise. The one new issue posed by the building once it's finished is the elevator. I don't know if that's hydraulic or mechanical, but if it's hydraulic, it's going to involve equipment and compressors, where those are located, how they project noise. Noise is sent from the firehouse basically uphill. It's down below us, but noise certainly comes up. And so understanding the potential noise impacts of the elevator and mitigating them to the extent they've been identified, exist, now's the time to do that, not after the problem exists for us with the constructed building. The other comment has to do with existing equipment on the roof, in particular the exhaust fan used when the fire trucks are started within the engine. You have to vent the exhaust. There's a fan on the roof. It's quite audible. It's on a timer, which is good. It goes off after 5 minutes, but you can hear it. I know when the fire trucks are leaving because I hear that fan go on. And when you look at that fan, and this is one of the pictures I sent to you, it's right on the roof. it's shielded on all sides but the southern side, which is the side facing our house. That could be improved on. It's gotten louder over time, probably just because the fan and equipment is getting old and the bearings are fading. But choices of equipment, soundproofing of that equipment, it's all going to be being addressed and worked on in the course of all this construction. I would hope attention could be paid to that. And then finally, the other photograph I included shows all the air conditioners that are on the roof. There's shielding being put on the roof around the elevator shaft. I'm not sure what that's all about, but similar kind of shielding could address the noise from all those air conditioners. When they're running, it's a good sized hum. As I say at the end, the fire station personnel have been good neighbors. We appreciate the fact that it's there, but this is an opportunity for the architect and for the contractor to think about those three sources of noise that I would ask that be done. And I'd also ask that there be something real with that. That is, they let us know what they think the noise from the elevator will be and how they're addressing it and the like. And then finally, I just mentioned, we're going to be right here on the work site for the entire time of this project, in effect. And so operating within the limits of operation, if it's 8 a.m., which I think it is for the local ordinance, that's going to be very important because the noise is going to come right across our wooden fence up to our house. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Ken. I'll go to Manu Tahari.
Hi. Yes, hi, thank you.
220?
Yes, Minu Tahiri.
Minu, okay.
Thank you for the presentation and thank you, Ken. Hi, nice to see you, our neighbor down the street. So we're at 220 Amherst Avenue, and so our house is directly on the east side of the parking lot of the fire station. So we actually look out onto the fire station. And so we wanted to echo Ken's concerns about the noise after the construction. So the AC, and I hadn't thought about the elevator, but that's also important. The other question that I had as I was listening to Ken talk about his concerns is there's a backup generator on the parking lot. So if you could clarify what are the plans for that, if it's going to be changed or not. That also is very noisy, and it also we can smell the exhaust, whatever the fumes that come out of that when they run it. So if that can be addressed, I'd appreciate that. And then in terms of construction, I didn't realize that the entire inside of the building is going to be reconfigured. So that's a lot of construction. It's not just enclosing the patio. So if the group could address construction timeline, when would this happen? And how long of a construction would it be? Because obviously there's noise and what have you. Although we moved from New York City, so we're used to construction noise and traffic noise. This is, not a lot by comparison, but it's going to be a long project. So if that can be addressed, we'd certainly appreciate that. And that's it. I mean, I think it's interesting how the constraints, and I remember the geologists coming and doing the study. They came into our property as well when they did that. So I'm happy that there's going to be seismic upgrades, because the letter that was sent, I don't think really addressed that beyond just adding to the space. I'd be interested to knowing what specifically will be the seismic upgrades.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I go to Byron and Sasha Kawachi. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
I guess you're going to hear from all of us around surrounding the fire department. I was surprised also from the initial letter when I went to the website, I had no idea that they were going to sink these huge piers into the ground, and that it was really a very complicated and major construction, because it sounded like you were just going to enclose the porch. So having thought about that, we've been here since 1979, and unfortunately, during that whole time, our house has been gradually sinking into the ground. And I can see that with major construction and pile drivers and major modifications next door, that there's a risk of that damaging the stability of our house. And what provision is there for us to make sure that we can keep track of that and that doesn't happen? Or if it does happen, it can be remediated?
The other thing that I don't know if you've addressed is parking during the process, since we live right next door to the fire department, police department. We can't park in front of our house now often. And so what is going to happen during the 1.5 years of construction? I'm very concerned about that. And actually, my husband has an inhaler. We're very worried about the health prospects of the construction, and if we can even live here, or we'll have to relocate. So and how we would even do that. We've been here since '76. So, and we're seniors. So all of it is concerned. The pile, where the pile piers go in, is that right next to our house? And this is all new to us. We're not professionals, probably don't even know the right questions to ask that maybe you would ask if it was your house, but take that into account. It sounds like a major remodel when, as my husband said, it was just going to be enclosed in front. Well, okay, but this is something completely different. And also concerned about the light or any kind of difference in our house. Sounds like you won't move closer to our house, but maybe on the other side, it's 3.5 feet instead of 5 feet. But honestly, I look at the plans and it's a foreign language. So that's some of our concerns.
Thank you, Tasha. I'm going to go to Jim Watt at 286 Grizzly Peak.
Can you spell that for me? Sorry.
It's
Last
W. Chris.
Sorry, I can't see the notes. So just Jim's last name.
It's W-A-T-T, like Watt.
Got it. And address?
286 Grizzly Peak.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I'm a long-term Kensington resident, and I have several concerns about this project. I'd like to just kind of go through them quickly. The first is that the way the project has been described to you is that we need to add this square footage in order to create the space we need for this office area for the firefighters that are staged upstairs. But in point of fact, what has been missed throughout the discussion is the fact that the police are being expelled from the building, and the police currently occupy in the upstairs area 465 square feet, and the mechanical room of 71 square feet is being put up on the roof. So a total of 536 square feet is being added to the current 1,900 square feet that the 3 firefighters have as their living quarters upstairs. In other words, when the building is finished as now planned, with the additional 345 square feet added, the firefighters will now have a living quarter area of approximately 2,800 square feet, much larger than many homes here in Kensington. Not necessary. My second comment is that downstairs, there's a large meeting area that will enable 15 people to attend meetings on premise. And in addition, there will be an office space for Bill Hansel and his staff, which could be as many as 4 people. So in addition to the firefighters, there could be at any given time as many as 20 additional people coming to the premises, either part-time or full-time. And there is only one parking place out in front of the building, and that place is a 30-minute parking only. My third point is that there is no handicapped parking area. They've gone to great lengths to provide an elevator to bring handicapped people up to the second floor, should that ever be necessary. But they have no place for the handicapped person to park his automobile. And as I just have mentioned, there is only one off-site parking place available. Yet there's the possibility of having 19 additional people on the premises. My fourth point is that the elevator, excuse me, my last point would be that the what's it called? The Alquist-Priola Act says that they can only expand at a cost not to exceed 50% of the cost to replace the building. Those costs now are approaching $6 million. I'm sure that this building, if it was to be rebuilt in its entirety, would never be a $12 million building. So I think that they have already exceeded the Alquist-Priola threshold of 60%. So I think that also needs to be considered by you. Those are my comments.
Right. Thank you, Jim. Next is Supervisor John Joya.
Thanks, Patrick. I actually wasn't going to comment, but in just listening to it, I just wanted to maybe make the applicant aware, and I would have mentioned this had I thought of this sooner. While it doesn't apply to this type of construction, I recently sponsored an ordinance at the county that was approved that requires pretty much all new construction, excluding industrial and restaurants, to be all electric, no natural gas. So while it doesn't apply here, I wanted to encourage the applicant to look at that. Again, I would have mentioned this had I thought of this sooner, because I think this is really the spirit of what we're trying to achieve. Doesn't affect, it'll only affect Kensington to the extent that somebody's building a new home. Doesn't apply to a remodel. Although if they're building a separate, if you're building a detached ADU, you will need to have that project be all electric. So I'd like the fire district to sort of take a look at that. And there was an issue raised about a generator. And I serve also on the Bay Area Quality Management District. And during the wildfires, we were seeing a real increase in permits for diesel generators. And of course, one alternative, the technology is still developing, is much more battery storage. Is to have, and to the extent there's solar in new construction support, which we're requiring in more industrial construction with battery storage, it provides some opportunity to not use your standby generator as frequently, or in some cases, not even to need a standby diesel generator. So I wanted to offer those comments. Really, I know they're not legally required, but to the applicant, to the fire district, as they think about the project. So I just wanted to offer those thoughts.
All right, thank you, Supervisor Joya. I don't see anybody else that has entered the chat. Is there anyone else that would like to speak before I ask either Bill or Larry to respond to the comments that were made? Okay, I'm gonna have Bill or Larry. Probably Bill, if you want to respond. I wrote a couple of notes and I just want to make sure that you cover it. One was about light, access to sunlight. The other ones were very similar in terms of noise from the generators to the equipment to the elevator. And then also with that, noise to the during construction. And then, excuse me, and then I think the other item was just to talk about the construction process itself. I don't know if you can provide a schedule, but there was questions in terms of how the seismic piers would be put in and what sort of mitigation or what sort of items that are going to be placed upon the project itself. And then the last one, I'm going to just talk about in terms of what maybe Jim Watt had asked about with regards to handicap parking, as well as Supervisor John Joya with his comments with the electric, all electric works. So there.
Yes,
I want to make sure that you covered everything and got everybody's comments on there, just to make sure. So.
I actually was trying to take pretty good notes, so I'm going to go down that list as I heard them as well. So first of all, let me just say, in terms of the notification, I want to make it clear that the district followed the process of the DCD, which was to make an application permit. It was identified that this particular issue of the zoning that a variance would be required. And so in terms of public notification, you know, the project has not intended to be identified as only related to the variance. That's why we've spent, prior to my time, from 2015, many public hearings. And I'd say anyone who hasn't heard of what's been going on, please sign up for our email list. We do, as the Brown Act requires, notify all of our meetings. We've tried to be totally transparent with the total scope of the project. So I just don't want to let that go in terms of how this particular question of the variance was notified versus the broader discussion of the project. And you know, also, obviously, it's been a very difficult decision, I know, for the board of directors to you know, come to the fact that the only way to really ensure the kind of service that's needed is to renovate this project. There are definitely renovate this existing buildings. There are various ways that it you know, maybe there would be some other ideal solutions, but really the district, in terms of the management recommendation, and I think what the directors have decided upon is what they felt is the best you know, actionable way to proceed without further delays. We're already seeing, because of construction inflation now is at 8% a year. When this project started out, discussion started out 7 years ago, it would have cost half the amount of money. So we're conscious of, you know, further extending the liability of the seismic. Now, in terms of 213 Arlington, thank you for it's always very helpful to hear from our immediate neighbor at 213. I was just kind of quickly looking, I'll show you at the relationship. I assume the windows we're talking about are back here. These two, and I don't have any sort of records going back to the 70s in terms of, you know, why this specifically was cut away. It seems to me, it had not occurred to me that would be in deference to maybe the construction of this house, but you know, it's kind of was sort of obvious that giving some kind of space outside to the firefighters, you know, was part of the program at the time. Unfortunately, as President Nagel said, it's just something that we can't afford to continue to provide. So I will say that, and for, you know, speaking kind of with an architecture background, I personally don't believe that that the enclosure, the extension of this front would really change the viewscape of these, or really, frankly, the light as well, because the existing house has its own overhang. This is, relatively speaking, set further back. We're talking about back here already, and I personally don't feel that you know, the enclosure of this would change the nature you know, of the light or the view out of those rooms. But that's just my personal opinion. It's not something we kind of looked into further. In terms of our neighbors at 230 Amherst, Mr. Finney, I'd say the elevator, if we're looking at the roofscape here, I can't zoom any further, you can see the various mechanical equipment that's located up here. This pop-up is actually just a clear story light for the dining area below. So it's not a mechanical, doesn't have a mechanical function. It's purely something for light to come in. a raised portion of that ceiling. So the elevator will be located approximately here in the center of the building. Let me see if I can show you that plan again. So it is, it doesn't project. Sorry, 1 second here. There's a 20, let's see, 25'8". So basically it's it's 22 feet at 7 at the existing roof level, and this goes another 3 feet up. It would not have any mechanical equipment. I'm not sure where Mr. Watt is getting that information from. There's no mechanical equipment there. In fact, the mechanical equipment is located down on the ground floor, as I said, right next to the building. So acoustically, I don't think there's going to be any effect outside of the building. In fact, this whole ground floor level is buried underground relative to the east side of the building. So, so I feel confident that from the elevator standpoint, that would not be an issue. In terms of the equipment, I would, I think it's probably astute observation that the age of the equipment has probably increased its noise over time. I will say that all of this is getting replaced with new equipment. And the standards for energy conservation obviously are something that we're going to have to meet, and it will also be more efficient equipment. It will also be a different system. Instead of having, this is a system which basically is air with larger air handling units that push the air throughout the entire building. The proposed system, which is more energy efficient, is smaller individual units that can just be activated per the zone that they serve. So I think overall you're going to be seeing, you would see smaller units and therefore smaller noise. It is something that I would certainly be happy to, check on with our mechanical engineers and see if there's any other, remediations we can do. In terms of construction noise, this project is assumed to be about a 16-month to 18-month project from complete start to complete finish. Obviously, the period of time that's involved with the substantial exposure of the building is sort of the front end of that. And but the studies that again, the district did 5 different seismic studies, and the observation that that it's not simply a matter of a seismic issue. The entire hill is moving. So it doesn't surprise me that other residents would see that their houses have had some subsiding. But that is definitely something that we're seeing in this, and it was the first signs back in the 90s that there were problems with the existing building. The cracking in the walls, and if you look at the front apron of the building down here, the driveway apron, it's separated now by a few inches from where the fire engines come out. So part of the problem is and there were remediation attempts, and I think it was like late 90s and also the early aughts. You see the steel frames at the front of the building and that are over here. Unfortunately, what that appears to have done is it sort of pinned down this side of the building, which then meant the south western side is torquing around it, and maybe the whole building is lifting up over it. So that type of movement makes it therefore that much more susceptible in an earthquake, because it's already not stable. In fact, we had to do studies of the floors and found that there's substantial tilt in the second floor and the ground floor. In terms of, I will say too, relative to construction noise, this is going to be a public project. It'll be a publicly bid project. It will not be the typical kind of residential project where you'll have people coming in at all sorts of hours, because it will be guided by prevailing wage and other issues that basically things will start up at the designated time and they will stop on the dot, and there won't be any activity be outside of the ordinance hours for a construction project. I've already addressed a little bit of that timeline. The timeline itself, the start date, end date, depends upon our ability to obtain the permit. Again, we feel pressed. In fact, the board approved a resolution a few months back expressing the urgency of this project for the public due to the seismic safety issues, urging the county to assist us with trying to move this forward as fast as possible. We have done financial projections extensively in the fall that were based upon a construction start date in the late summer. If we move that basically every 6 months, but we move that back, we're looking at another 4% increase in costs. So it's something that we would prefer to have start in this fall and to be able to be occupied by the beginning of 2024. The seismic, I was also asked by our neighbors at 220 Amherst, the seismic upgrades. Yeah, they are extensive, and if there is any way that we could avoid it, or we could make this building, not fail in a quake, we would be all ears. Unfortunately, as I said, an essential services facility just has far greater standards than any other type of. It's basically a hospital, police station, fire station level that has to make sure that building might sustain some damage, but will be fully functional, remain fully functional in the event of a quake. So what that means practically is that there are new piers that are going to be drilled that would be in this lower level, and a new foundation pad that is there. And in order to put the steel rebar in for that, we have to, as well as reinforce the second floor level, we have to demo a lot of that second floor, because we only have so much area due to the large number of garage bays here, the 3 bays for the engines. We can't get the typical kind of length of shear wall, solid wall, to be able to resist the lateral earthquake forces. So what that means is that on the interior, we have to use some interior walls as shear walls. And in fact, although the elevator is something that we're doing because of accessibility, as it turns out, structurally, it ends up becoming sort of like a spine or a pin in the middle of the building that will help to root it further. Now, in terms of, I've adjusted a little bit the seismic stability. In terms of the way that construction would look with parking in, let's see. You will note that we have the large apron here at the front. We also have the parking lot in the back. We also have the side area. The way that this project would have to work is that because of the scope of the work, the fire department has to move out for that period of time. And so we were looking at a temporary facility that would be built. Actually, it's an City of El Cerrito property near the Unitarian Church. And so that project, that facility would be set up, everyone would move out. And then actually, in terms of the typical kind of access we have for construction projects in this area, we've actually got pretty good parking, on-site parking for all of the contractors' vehicles. We've got good layout space in terms of the apron for the construction materials. So, we actually, I feel like we would benefit from the fact of having this this additional parking area that's in the back. Then moving on to Mr. Watt's comments. This scope of the boards, we're happy to, answer any questions you have on the project and the history of the project and the discussions on the project. We will say that we were trying to focus on the question at hand, which was the variance. We understand that and there has been extensive discussion about the police occupancy. The fact of the matter is that the police, which is a separate district, the KPP-CSD, we had extensive working relationships with them a year ago. they need far more square footage than we could provide, even if they were to continue, even if we had that space. So it's a debatable point, but I think it's been covered by our board of directors extensively. And in fact, the operations of the police, if you ask them, 2 police chiefs will tell you that is exactly what they feel is like. They want to find other quarters because of what their needs are. And we understand because like us, the needs have changed for the space. I have already mentioned there isn't a mechanical room up on the roof, so that doesn't really apply. In terms of relating firefighters spaces to household space, it's just there's 3-4 adults that are living and working in the space. It's very different than trying to compare it to a home. We also have records, that have to be accommodated in a way that's just functionally very different. In terms of the number of people, I also explained, it was mentioned we're going to have 4 people in the office. We have 1 part-time general manager, who's myself. We have had a part-time board clerk. We have consulting bookkeepers who work out of their own homes. Currently, the building has the 3 firefighters. Because of COVID, I have not been there. The police staff have 1, 2, 3, 4, about 5 or 6 people. You'll notice all of the police cars back here. That's because the police use most of the parking. In the proposed finished plan, you will have the firefighters upstairs. You'll have all this entire lot being dedicated to the fire staff. So the fire personnel who can't park here because they're on shift for 3 days, they have to leave their cars out on the street. So they'll finally have the parking they need. The lot actually does accommodate an accessible space. It's right here in the plan. The requirement of the building doesn't require parking public accessibility spots for the public, but it does require at least 1 spot for staff. And so this space in the corner would be striped to provide that access if it's needed for a working official or someone coming on official business to the building. Just like now, otherwise this lot is, this driveway is currently closed and will remain closed to the general public. In terms of the meeting room downstairs and are having any other kind of space that we could potentially, steal from, that we already have a conference room and we have, 5 offices and a fairly inefficient hall space, and plus the staff space at the front. So we really have 6 offices. Mostly that's because these are all police-related functions. The proposal is to actually have that same conference room, meeting room function be here. It's slightly larger. Frankly, it's still not as large as what the staff had hoped to have. It functions as not only as a place for the staff to meet and do training, staff being the firefighters. It also is a place to have smaller board meetings when that's necessary or able to accommodate the number of people. We have 2 different committees. We have Finance Committee and we have Emergency Preparedness Committee that need a meeting space. We have other types of training for firefighters that need a meeting space. And then frankly, in an emergency situation, this would function as a DOC operations center, which would allow the firefighters to have some place to be able to set up emergency response equipment. So the 5-6 offices in the existing have been administratively tightened down to this 1 space, which would basically be for the general manager, basically 2 desks, the general manager as well as the part-time board clerk. This staff space would be an overflow for if there was a public meeting, and probably have someone there greeting people. And the other reason for the size of this space is that we have to accommodate all the district's historical records that can't be stored elsewhere, that need to be accessible. Plus we have our servers and our other electric equipment and just typical office equipment. A lot of that currently is in the garage, which frankly is just not acceptable. So we don't feel that we actually feel that this is a very efficient plan, and we've actually reduced the amount of admin space increase the access to the, public meeting room space while serving all the firefighters what they need. And have provided at least the minimal accessible parking. The other comment was about the Alcos Priola Act. We've tried to cover this before in a couple of different public meetings. As has been confirmed by the state geologist and by the county, if we do not increase the footprint, which is what you're basically looking at here, the Alcos Priola Act in terms of a restriction, including the 50% threshold cost, does not apply. So again, it's not really relevant to the variance, but I'm covering it because it was raised here. Coincidentally, prior to finding out that it would not apply and restrict us, we also did we've done 2 rounds of pricing estimates, and the replacement cost actually was more than double what we're seeing here. So there are certainly great efficiencies by doing this project as opposed to replacing it. And if we would have replaced it, then it would trigger Alcos Priola. And finally, thank you to Supervisor Joy for bringing up the questions. I think actually the one in terms of the generator, I know one of the residents asked. So the emergency generator is strictly for that purpose. If power goes down, the fire department has to maintain power. I do know that it has to be checked, and I'm sure that's an annoyance. It is a diesel generator. The plan is, because it's required to have a generator, is to keep that generator. It's not too old, and it's been recently serviced. I can investigate other ways to to temper or mediate the sound reflection. I know right now it's surrounded
John Joy
by...
is on the meeting. I'm just telling you right now.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm responding to his comments. So right now it's that space is surrounded by CMU walls. I think it could probably have some sound absorption included in it that would mediate the testing noise. We also are looking at a solar panel options, PV options, to be able to, if we could do that along with some battery sources that would either replace that generator or take the burden off of it. I'm sure the board would like to consider that. And so I'll try to, facilitate that as an option to them. I do know that we already, because of Title 24 requirements, are looking at, if not completely, I think there are some things that we still need gas for, but mostly electric appliances, electric services in general. So I don't think we have a choice, but we're doing that. We're doing that anyway. And yeah, so I hope I would try to give you extensive answers to all those questions, and I hope that's covered it pretty well.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I do want to, there are 2 people that actually put in the chat, and I have to limit it to those. And if there is a comment after their comments, then Bill, you can actually respond to them. But these are the last 2 people. Robert Becker at 220 Amherst Avenue, if you would want to speak.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much. So one follow-up question about the roof. Just curious to know what else might go up there, and if there's like elevation with that, any concerns around like what potential blocking of views and the like are for what that will look like.
Sure. Yeah.
Wait, Bill, I'll wait. We'll go with Shelley Smirnin, if you would want to speak. If not,
well, I'll say something.
Okay, go ahead.
Parking's already terrible, and I'm not convinced that the trade-off of parking is going to alleviate that, because on both sides of our property, there's red zones to allow for adequate turnaround for vehicles. So parking's already, I'm probably not as stressed right now because I haven't gone back to work, but once I come back to work, I come home and there's no parking, and it's often I think it's often the firemen and the police that park there. We have complained about that, and sometimes it's helped, sometimes it hasn't. Another question I have with the piers and the unstableness of the land, what is there any assurance that the piers are not going to cause more instability of the properties on both sides of the fire or the public service building, and also ours across the street, the buildings across the street, because there is that separation. We see that on our sidewalk and paths too. So, what happens if this causes more damage or more instability? What are the protections of the properties that all of a sudden we have a lot more earthquake stuff or stability stuff that we didn't have before that we now have to deal with?
Thank you, Shelley. That is the last public comment. So Bill, if there a couple of the parking had been addressed, but if you want to just say a little bit more about that, that would be great, as well as also the seismic. I believe that was somewhat addressed as well earlier, but I think the one item that Robert had mentioned was what other items on the roof there might be. So you can address all three of those comments, but I do want to say that the two I think that Shelley had mentioned had been addressed in earlier comments or your response.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just know that in terms of the number of cars that will be used by the people occupying the building will be reduced. It's just a matter of the police currently taking most of the spots, and they're not doing that in the future. I will say in terms of the seismic stuff, the piers are essentially in the center portion of the building that go down. So normally and I'll speak to this as an architect, having done a lot of structural work with piers, obviously in similar types of sites and even trickier ones. Usually the concerns are more about with property damage, about doing projects that are doing pier work right adjacent to the property line. The existing building has the extensive retaining walls to the sides, at least to the south side and to the east side. The pier work here will be constrained to in the center of the building. So we will definitely consult with our seismic engineers as well as our geotech. It'll be part of the approved plans to make sure that there are remediations in place that would have any concerns trickling out. Frankly, we feel like the building not continuing to slide down the hill is going to be the best thing, for everyone all around. In terms of the rooftop landscape, currently, other than the light monitor that pops up, there's a roof hatch that will stay, that's already there. These are all things that are the roof hatch is only about 8 inches or so off of the roof. There's a bunch of antennas, communications equipment. Some of that actually will be reduced because some of that is used by the police department and would not be required by fire. There's no other any like larger piece of equipment or even a proposal to put any kind of or need to put any sort of blocking parapet around, because anything that would be replaced would actually be less than what's currently there.
Right. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to close the public comments, and I'm going to just talk amongst the KMAC members. So I'll just start with Lloyd. Do you have any comments?
Well, unlike a lot of home projects, this is a social good for the entire community of Kensington. Unfortunately, some of the burdens fall more heavily on residents who are closer in proximity with their homes to the fire station. Having said that, it's absolutely critical to the identity of Kensington as a political entity, that we all do as much as is legally possible to ensure that fire protection in Kensington is the best it possibly can be. As everyone knows, the eastern border of Kensington is wildland. Every year, the possibility that a wildfire would start there and spread into everybody's neighborhood is significant and cannot be ignored. Having said that, I think that if the project fits the legal guidelines, that we as a board should do everything in our everything in our power to make it possible for projects to go forward, to make sure that the fire department is accommodated to the best of our ability in terms of finance and planning and process. So although there are concerns that there will be noise, disruptions to parking, and all of possible changes to the outside envelope of the building, I think that the planning process has gone to great lengths, and that the people involved have bent over backwards to make this work. And I don't want to see our fire coverage deteriorate to the point where people are feeling as if the only option is to consolidate this department with other departments in, I think El Cerrito specifically is the alternative that's most frequently proposed. So that's what I have to say.
All right. Thank you, Lloyd. I apologize. My service just went down for a bit, but I'm back on. So I'll go with Larry.
I echo a lot of what Lloyd had to say. In terms of the specific variants, I think we're okay. I'll leave again, like I did last time, to Chris for the technical part of that. But I've gone to many, many meetings regarding the public safety building, and I honestly don't see any alternative to what's being proposed. The other locations for building another building are also seismically strange, because that's the nature where we live. I think that the planners have done as much as they can to do a good job by it. I do like Supervisor Joya's comments about having a diesel generator. Is just, that seems very retro and completely counter to everything we're trying to do with global warming and so on. So, but other than that, I mean, I don't know what else we could expect.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Melissa? Yeah,
Yeah, I know. I feel a little undone by this project. I have been to a number of the meetings over the years. This showed up on our docket 3 weeks ago when we thought the meeting was going to be at the beginning, and was moved to this. I haven't really had a chance to look at the plans until the last week and a half or so. And I know that there's a lot of stuff that goes into it because of ADA. I know there's a lot of stuff because of seismic, and that's your main purview in redoing the building and stuff. I'm just concerned about the cost to the community. I think it's a huge cost to the community, and it's a double cost because we're going to have to pay to move the police elsewhere. And I understand that at this point it's just a foregone conclusion, but I'm just, this whole thing is making me very nervous and not particularly happy. And it's a hit to Kensington on a lot of levels. And El Cerrito closed a hillside fire station, so that puts it on us. It's tough. Anyway, those are my comments.
okay. Thank you, Melissa. Chris?
Sorry, I was typing away in the background to the minute. So I'm in agreement with Lloyd and Larry. I think the community needs the services. I do think that, again, there are a lot of ways to look at the project, but our purview is really to look at the legal requirements, the variance. The other things have to be addressed by the county and the district. So I think that, I agree it meets the requirements, the legal requirements for variance. I do appreciate that the community was given an opportunity to speak, especially the direct neighbors. And I'm glad to see there's consideration being taken, especially in reducing, and John's comments were good, but I think for the neighbors, so reducing what's on the roof. I'm sure we'd all like to be able to accommodate police and fire when building it. It doesn't seem physically possible. So we just have to make the best use of the facility that we have for the fire district. So the project makes sense to me. I know it's complicated, but I'd say at a minimum for what KMAC is to do, we're supposed to review it for the legal requirements of the variance. And I think it meets that, Patrick.
Thank you. I'll just say my comments very similar to what Chris, Larry, and Lloyd had mentioned. Our purview is of the ordinance, is what we have talked about, as well as the variance that we see in front of us. I think in terms of the variance, it does meet all three requirements in terms of that. It is an existing condition with regard to the variance. It had to do with the setback more so than anything else on that. And that is an existing condition that is just a predetermined existing condition on that point. It is a very difficult, I am hoping that the fire district will take the considerations of the neighbors very much at heart. They're your good neighbors. They just want to make sure that they will be provided with probably less noise, better parking, and so on and so forth, as well as during the construction, as well as when it ends. So I will say that aside from what I understand, the process and the procedures of everything that has happened with the fire district and the police district in terms of that, I do think for the project and for our purview that it seems like a project that I would support at this point in time. So that said, I think, do I hear a motion at all in terms of the project?
I'd be glad to take a crack at it. I would say, I would make a motion that we recommend approval of 217 Arlington VR 21-01040 in that it meets the requirements of the variance, for the variance.
And do I hear a second?
I'll second. I think Lloyd is also.
Okay.
Couldn't unmute fast enough.
All right. So I have a motion from Chris and a second from Larry. So any discussions on the motion? If not, I want to set for a vote to recommend. So all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so I have Lloyd, Larry, Patrick, and Chris. Aye, and one nay from Melissa. So we recommend approval. KMAC recommends approval for the project from the fire district. So that said, Bill and Larry, I will send a quick note to your planner, which is I think, Everett, as well as the county itself in terms of this project. And I would talk to them in terms of what the next steps are.
So I want to thank you for your giving us all this amount of time. And I really do want to say to the neighbors that they please email me directly. The address is on the district's website. It's but I would love to stay in touch with you to give you as much information and keep you up to date on very specifics with the schedule and construction and any of your other concerns that come up. And we're happy to work with you on remediating any of those concerns. I didn't mention, but just in terms of the cost of the community, I will say that the district is pursuing a hazard mitigation grant, which is a FEMA grant program, which could possibly cover up to 75% of the cost of the project. We have hired grant writers to help us pursue that. We're cautiously optimistic that that would be a great benefit of, the coincidence of the timing of actually getting this done with a time when there is federal money that is queued up. And we're making the best argument we can that should go to Kensington. And then finally, we're administratively on the operations side, working as closely as we can with the police. We have tried to be in lockstep. Politically, I know there's been some differences, but we will work with the other district and make sure that Kensington gets the best service both for fire and for police protection. And I hope President Nagel, I'm not stepping out of line in any of that, but I think the board has expressed that over and over again. And this also will be something that is discussed pretty much in every board meeting, probably throughout construction. So please attend in the future to participate in those conversations.
No, I definitely agree with everything Bill said. We will work our best to make this the best for Kensington.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I will close this. I do need to stay within our record in terms of how the process is. So at this point in time, that is the conclusion. We don't have anything else. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
One quick question, Patrick, or maybe you could just text me after. Can you text me the email you'd like me to send the meeting minutes to?
Okay, yeah.
And I will make a motion to adjourn at 9:12 p.m.
So I have a comment from Chris to recommend adjournment. Do I hear a second?
I will second, even though where I am, it's after midnight.
Okay, so Lloyd, I have a second in terms of, do I have any discussion with that? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So all five, Melissa, Lloyd, Larry, Chris, and I are all in agreement in terms of adjourning the meeting. So thank you all for joining. Stay safe, stay calm, and stay positive. Thank you for your time and service to the community. So take care. We wish you good luck. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.